Hello everyone and welcome to our special series about the 2025 Annual Town Meeting. This series is designed to help inform residents about issues that are important to the town. Each segment is about a specific article or group of articles, so make sure you check in to find the issue that's important to you or to learn about all of the issues our town is facing. The next segment in our series about the 2025 Annual Town Meeting addresses the Select Board's desire to create a design for a fire station renovation. The Select Board is currently working through options for a fire station redesign and has hired a consultant to help this town prepare for this important project. This article would request funds in order to pay the designer to bring a final design for a vote next spring.
Well, good morning. I'm Travis Snell. I'm the chair of the Carlisle Select Board, and today I'm here with Brian Soros, who is fire chief.
That's right. I'm fire chief in the town of Carlisle. We do both fire and EMS for the town.
Great. So we're going to have a little conversation. We have an article in the upcoming warrant for town meeting, in the spring town meeting, which is being held on May 18th, which is Article 19, which is the fire station renovation design. So we're going to be asking voters to allocate funds to study the design of a fire station addition and renovation. And so I want to talk about that with the chief this morning. So first of all, let's just give a little bit of background, Chief, if you wouldn't mind. Tell me about how long have you been the chief, and tell me about the
Right.
department itself.
Right, so I've been the chief about 5 years. I was lucky enough to start just before we hit COVID, so that was a big event for us. We since then have beefed up our EMS. We have about 30 EMTs, and fireside, where our staffing is very good right now, but it's heavily weighted on people 60 to 65, or people that won't be around for more than about 5 years.
Okay. So we have a station. When was that built?
So mid 80s, somewhere around 85. When it was built, the previous station there was a huge improvement over the previous station.
Yeah.
But when it was built, they knew that it was going to need to be built on. So they built the back of it. They cleared it out because they knew they were going to need another bay. They also expected they were going to build on top because they knew it had basically no offices and none of the other facilities that a fire station needed.
But it was never built out. And so, so from the 1980s to now, a lot's changed. Like, tell me about some of the changes with your structure, the force, and so forth, and what calls you get.
Right. So it's kind of more of an all hazards department now. Basically, any hazard in any safety hazard in the town, we respond to, and we're pretty much ready to. There's more EMS than there was when the station began. Although we're still kind of half and half. 5 or 6 years ago, we were maybe 400 calls a year. Now we're more like 750 calls, or 760, somewhere in that range. We're still kind of half and half. Unlike many towns, most towns are much more heavily medical than fire. But since we don't have any businesses, we're still kind of half and half. In terms of what's happened in the fire industry, people have realized that a lot of the contaminants cause a lot of problems, so there's a lot more concern about keeping your contaminated areas away from your living areas.
Sure.
And then our workforce obviously has changed. Kind of, my mentor as a fire chief says, if you're doing the same things you were doing 5 years ago, now you're not going to survive, and if you're doing the same things 5 years from now, everything's changing.
Yeah, let's break some of that down. So the decontamination you talk about, because I think that's been one of the things you've talked to me about previously, is that so the firefighters go out on a call. There's a lot more hazardous materials that they're dealing with, different substances. They come back in. There's a lot more data now about the particulates and how damaging it can be. So they would come back into the station, and what happens?
Yeah, so what should happen is that their gear is separated from them, that there's a discussion of you shower within the hour, get contaminants off of you, and get your gear. We actually, the state, I got a state grant for extractors, so we can clean the gear now, but it's all in the same place everything else is,
Right.
and the gear is still on the floor with everything else. That's not the current standards. Current standards are to have a room with your gear that's less contaminated, and then to separate all that contamination from, say, your living spaces, your
Sure.
kitchens, and all of that
You
kind
have
of
a
thing.
separate ventilation system probably for decontamination, which you don't currently have.
Right.
So, one of the things that I think is important for voters to know and the public is that our firefighters are at risk. Here they are, an on-call fire department. They do get paid minimum wage for most of them, but they're essentially volunteers. They're people in our community and around our community who want to give their time and want to be a part of this. And yet they're putting themselves at risk, and we're not giving them the kind of safety tools that they need to be healthy in that process. The other thing you mentioned I thought was interesting is that you said we shower within an hour. So you've got what is your shower facility like right now?
So we do have a locker room that has a sign on it that has an E. That means everyone can come in.
Okay.
And if you want to be private, you turn it to be an M, which means for men. And if you turn it to a W, it's for women.
Yeah.
We've worked our way up to about a quarter of our department being women. That's a little bit down now, but if we're going to keep an on-call department, we need to be able to have all genders
Sure.
and be able to support them. So
right now you just have one central shower facility, and you have to turn this thing to tell them, okay, you can go in now, and you can. It just doesn't seem like something in today's world, because when you built this station, I think probably the force was all male, correct, or all men, and now the world has changed for the better in many ways. So that's great. But we need to support the women firefighters and have the gender facilities that really are going to work for this down the road.
As well as culturally, people expect to be taken care of that way and not expect to be second class if they're a different gender.
Yep.
So all of those things are important. The other kinds of things that we have is we have all of the things that go with us we have nowhere to put. So all of those are out on the bay floors and all. And so that's a safety issue as well.
Sure.
In terms of there just isn't enough space to move around in the station.
Yeah, I will say, so when we've been talking with the fire chief, the select board has been working on this extensively over the past 12 months and even prior with consultants to try to understand what is the right kind of program going forward, and that's where we've come up with understanding that there are some safety hazards with this hazardous materials, that they need to make sure they have the proper equipment or proper facility to clean their equipment and themselves, and with a gender equity issue relative to the women firefighters and others who want to be firefighters, and just we need to have a facility. But one of the things that you have pointed out as well is that the on-call fire station may not survive at this current rate as what we're doing. So that does dovetail into a little bit of what you said about storage, because that is one of the more, I'd say, contentious, but it's not really not contentious, but it's something that we're exploring with you and with these consultants to try and understand what's the optimal storage that we need, because that is something that as you expand the station, every foot you expand obviously costs more. And so we're, as the select board, trying to make sure we are supporting and getting the right balance. But to get the right balance, we also have to think about where's the force headed? So tell me about that relative to what is your biggest challenge with the force, personnel?
Right. So we have the town has been very supportive. The select board's been very supportive. The finance committee's been very supportive of keeping an on-call department. And I think it really does. It's what I'd like to call dynamic staffing. So we don't pay people unless they're working, but if we need people, we can call more people out to get things done. And so we can fight brush fires in ways that towns around us cannot. We can do, no town around us can do a water supply the way we can. we can run 2 ambulances, which is a great benefit to the town.
Well, wait a second. You have a second ambulance. I've seen that. What
Right.
do you have to do to get that in the station right now?
Well, we tried to make it fit, and it wouldn't fit, but we took the bumper extensions off, and so we can back it completely against the wall with the extensions removed, and we can just get the door down. You can't move around it, but you can get the door down and close the door.
So if you need to use your second ambulance, you get the call, the first ambulance is out, the second one's on call now, all of a sudden it goes, you have to open the door, move it out, put on the bumper, and then
No.
take it.
We don't have to put the bumper on.
Oh,
The issue is more when you get back, trying to fit it back in the station.
okay.
And
So
you have to
it goes without
have a lot of
bumper,
skill to get it back in.
but it doesn't have a bumper when it's driving along?
That's right.
Well, that seems woefully inadequate from a safety standpoint.
But we've ended up using the last several weeks. We've I don't know, probably 6 or 8 times run both ambulances at the same time. So it's been really, really good to have. We don't have to be sitting around waiting for mutual aid to
Right.
get us an ambulance.
One of the things that I've learned in just talking with you and learning more about our firefighting capabilities here is that Carlisle is different because we don't have town water. Whereas if you go to Concord or some of the surrounding towns, the firefighters are able to, they're very skilled and trained. They hook up to the fire hydrant and then they fight that fire. Whereas in Carlisle, we don't have that. So our trucks are different in the sense that they are pumper trucks that have special hoses that can go longer distances to get to fire cisterns or to ponds, or we supply large volumes of water through tanker trucks that other towns don't necessarily have because they have this supply of water. So the select board had kind of, and continues to ask, well, should we be sharing resources? Should we be, becoming a regional fire department? And what we continually find is that because we have these specialized firefighters who know how to fight fires in an environment where there isn't public water supply, that's really unusual. And it's not to say that Concord couldn't do that, but if Concord came to fight a brush fire, tell me about that. What would that? I mean, they would know how. They're trained. They're highly trained, but it's different.
Right. And so this is one of the things you ask, what's changed in our world? And this is one of the things that has changed is none of the towns around us. So we're not that unusual in doing rural water supply. Other towns do that, but nobody around us does that. Mm-hmm. So when we want to call somebody who knows how to do what we do, we're calling Stowe, we're calling Air, we're calling Harvard.
So you get a big brush fire in Carlisle, you've got to bring in people from
If
further.
what we need is the water,
yep.
those are the people who know how to do that and have the equipment to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what is very unusual to us is not only do we do this, but that we have to be self-sufficient for that part of it. So all of our engines are bigger, and our people are very well skilled at that, and the towns around us really are not. So yes, Sunday we were in Acton, and they needed a lot of water far from their hydrant system, and we were part of the group that provided it.
Sure.
But it took them a while to get that up and going. And they learned a lot from what we were doing because it's not something that they do.
Right. We are Carlisle. We're unique in that
That's
way,
right.
which makes part of the charm of our town.
Yeah.
But you've talked to me about, and I've seen it firsthand, what I would consider one of the biggest challenges with the fire department going forward is really the staffing and how if the town is going to maintain an on-call fire department versus a professional, career fire department, there are going to be massive changes, and those would be in terms. And I think about this as on the select board in particular, but as a voter and really as a taxpayer, thinking about the cost of this because. If right now we have a really good value, we have a bargain with what we do firefighting wise, but if we are to have to move to a career fire department, we're going to have to upgrade our facility dramatically to meet certain standards. Is that right?
That's true. There are actually many of the same upgrades that we're asking for anyway.
Okay.
For us, so it's that part of it is nice.
Okay.
That a lot of the things we're asking for, but the staffing and the cost for staffing is dramatically different, and your services, as your call department dwindles, your services will greatly reduce, right? The ability to run two ambulances, start to go away and things like that. But we're talking millions of dollars and millions of dollars a year to be able to staff, and that's just minimal staffing, not even anything close to what we do now.
Right. So your staffing budget, because we're right now, getting essentially volunteers, even though they're paid, but they're people who care about this, want to do this as a volunteer service in their lives. But we would be moving to this professional that is much higher paid, and as a town, we would have to pay for that cost, and it's millions of dollars of additional budgetary cost. So that's directly going to affect the taxpayer. But tell me about the staffing then to retain the department, because I know it's been challenging, and COVID presented some challenges. But you've told me about the what is there's a four. How quickly does someone have to get to the station? If there's a walk me through the
right. So we
happens.
pretty much need to live within 4 minutes of the station. And that's two pieces of it. You can have some people a little bit further away, but the problem is if day to day they show up and everything's already left, they're not a part of that thing. So I've had people who have been volunteers other places. They moved to the area. They live 15 minutes away. They've done volunteer firefighting before. They can do remote work. And they ask me, can I just work out of your station? And I'll, it'd be great. And I show them our facility and say, here's the kitchen and here's the other room that we have 4 other people working in. And we'd love to have you. And they say, thank you very much. There isn't any of the space. So where we have opportunities, we can't take advantage of them for that kind of thing. But these people, there are people who, if we gave them the possibility of being, we don't really care how, within 4 minutes. Our pool is very small if we can only have people who actually reside within 12 minutes, within 4 minutes. If we could increase that would help a lot.
So you're saying if for example, someone were in the outskirts of Chelmsford or, a different town and, they weren't on the town line, but they were further out, it would take them too long to get to a fire call because they have to come to the station, get their equipment on, and then get out. But if you had a facility where they could, congregate during the day, you could staff it and say, hey, we're going to have 3 or 4 people here during the day. I'll plan on this, and people work that into their daily routine. They may work on their computer or whatever at the firehouse, builds the camaraderie of that, and then they get a call, they're already there. And the same would be true are you thinking about that for overnight, for like staffing?
Right. So the ability, say summer weekends, for example, we have real problems staffing.
In the summer.
In the summertime.
Summer, yeah.
It's very difficult. And so, we have had people try to stick around, and inevitably they stay in the station and no calls. But they're sitting on a chair. There's no place for them to be. If they could just sleep there, that would be a whole different world. They happen to sleep there, they can stay in a wonderful town for the weekend and walk some trails during the day and have a nice weekend. That would be a wonderful thing for them to do. They could feel part of the town, part of the community, part of the fire department community.
Right.
All of a sudden, this is why they're doing it. They're not doing it
Right.
for the hourly wage.
Right. Okay. Well, I think kind of to summarize is we're as a select board evaluating this, and we're asking the voters to support us with some additional funding to get professionals, so architects and planners, to help us evaluate exactly what will work best for the town, and keeping in mind that this is not we don't know exactly. We've tried to narrow down. We've focused on a few key things. We talked about the hazardous conditions that they deal with right now and how we have to solve that in the really near term, but we need to take care of our firefighters. We wanted to work on the gender equity issue relative to the females in the force who are, this building was built at the time when, they didn't have female firefighters, and they do now. We do, and thank goodness, and we want to support that. So there are some of those changes that we want to do. We do have to discuss and really dive into how much additional storage space do we need. And I know that there are many in the community who have different viewpoints on that, but I think we can arrive at what is going to be optimal for our town. And then obviously the most important thing, I think, is building this culture so that we have those pieces and components of this new station so that then we can continue to attract these on-call firefighters and not lose this to becoming a career fire station, which is going to dramatically increase the cost. So I think that's kind of our rationale going into this, and we hope that you'll support this going forward.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for coming in.
All right. Thank
Good
you.
to see you. Yep.